Welcome back to Rebuilding Astroworld. This is Swag, and on today's episode, we are going to shape the area around the splash boats, log flume, and kids coaster. This area is very much intermixed. You've got your log flume that goes around this coaster and under the top of the splash boats, and then we can always move this whenever we need to. This is the indoor coaster, Mayan Mindbender. Another thing to think about, this turn right here is also supposed to go over this splash boats ride as well. And that puts us in a precarious situation where 4 of these rides are honestly all sort of involving each other and each other's space. The train, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this train go as close to the river rapids as possible, just so I have as much space as possible for these few rides. And then of course the distance from the main path can vary as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and do some quick research by watching the POV of this coaster and the log flume and the serpent, I believe. Serpent? Yes. And then I don't know if there's a POV of the splash boats anywhere, but I'm going to watch all of those and kind of see how they intermix and how they intermingle, and then I will basically redesign the rides like I did the river rapids to figure out how the spacing is going to work over here. That's the plan for the episode. So go ahead and sit back and relax and listen to Campsite. That's my friend who's made the music for the series. Got a rough outline of like the roller coaster, the splash boats, and the log flumes, and this is kind of how it interacts in the real park, except for one minor issue. In the real park, this splash boats is diagonal. So what I've done is I went to an alternate save and we built a diagonal sort of version of the ride, which if you guys have played Roller Coaster Tycoon, you know there's no diagonal like pieces, and sometimes not even sprites for the vehicles. So we're gonna have to be really creative in the way we make this, and I think we're gonna do probably just water with track on the sides and for the bottom areas, and then kind of switch up the station. And then the lift I think is okay. I think it looks much like a non-water filled part of the ride, so I don't think that's too big of an issue. But we will have to save this ride and then build it down here, see where the spacing lines up, and then adjust these rides accordingly. I think the log flume ride is going to be something we just have to do totally custom, because in real life this has so many different angles that just can't be achieved in this game, and they can't look good unless you use the log flume track pieces because of the water. You always have water, whereas like the splash boats rides, honestly this looks sort of just like an open slide, whereas in the log flume you really do have water kind of flowing throughout. And then, of course, this ride right here, this is Serpent. This is what the coaster looks like in real life, but I think we can get away with maybe changing it up just a little bit, making it a little bit bigger, a little bit more meandery, and we're going to have buildings and stuff around this area, and this is honestly probably pushed a little bit further into the log flume, but I think overall we'll be able to make it work. So let's go ahead and place down the alternative build for the splash boats, and then we will redesign just the portion of the log flume that interacts with it, and then maybe do some pathing prefab work, and I think that's going to be a good idea for the next step. So I've built what I will determine as the current position of the ride. Ooh. I might have to shift over this coaster one tile because I don't like the way they line up right here. If I shifted over one, that probably would look better. For sure. Okay, so it's not going to be the determined final spot for this coaster, but I do like the way this looks. This is kind of made up. The real ride kind of just goes whoop and then right back into a station, but in RCT, we are not lucky when it comes to diagonal buildings. They just don't work out in NCSO. I also want to figure out how I can make a bridge, a diagonal bridge that comes over. I think it might be a decision between what looks good and what is functionable or functioning. Because if it's not functioning and it looks good, it might be easier than if I made it peepable. For now, I got to figure out maybe how the pathway might work if we go woof and then come under here. And that makes it connect better. And then an alternate route for peeps is to like kind of climb up and over to make it look more like the real ride, because most of these rides have little bridges that go over their splashdown. I think Serpent looks perfectly fine in this location. We might have to change the size. Now we're going to the log flume. So the only thing I wanted to make sure I did is the log flume does pass under the supports of the splash ride, which I think is the tidal wave. Might be wrong. And then this one's called Bamboo Shoot. Log flumes in RCT are very much support rides. It's very hard to make them the main rides because there's not much you can do with them, but as support rides, they're awesome. So let's look at a few examples of previous ones I've built and then previous ones that I've seen that I really do enjoy. So if we go back and check out, let's check out, I guess, Wings and Things. So this park has a pretty small log flume, and you can see the final drop and then the traditional pond and then loop back around. This is an underground station. And out of the station you come up, you've got a small little lift and a turnaround and then another lift up into the first kind of bigger splashdown with its own little retaining pond. And then right here, something I really enjoyed making was this really wide turnaround, which is not something you can do with pieces, but if you build something on top of it with track and like walls, it looks, you know, realistic. And I've actually been on a log flume where they did have a long turnaround that was like covered in a tunnel, And this one in this park looks pretty rad, and I do enjoy the way it looks. So this is like a heavily themed Splash Mountain-esque, you know, let's say a lower budget than a Disney park, but it's still very well themed. And then you can look at something like Raspberry Acres by Terry Inferno. And this one, he's got a very well-themed, like almost Splash Mountain-like, where a lot of the ride takes place inside of the mountain. And he used a lot of track texture and then parts and pieces to make this. So I don't think I'm going for this aesthetic. That's too much theming. And then we can go down to what Mekit and I did back in the day. We made a lightly themed Six Flags over Texas. We built this log flume, which super lightly themed. I mean, we're talking trees, maybe a lift building, splashdown area. Nothing too much to it. This was a park that we built in a month, which is insane, so there wasn't much to this. But it's doable. It's sort of raised, you're going down, meandering, etc. Nothing crazy to it. There's some other... I think Mekit had a log flume. Yeah, this one is what I would consider a traditional small park log flume, where you've got raised above the ground. It's just going around meandering. Every now and then it might pass through a small building, but I love this dual loading station. I really think I'm probably going to do a dual loading station for Astroworld. Honestly, under the same vein as this station. And I'm going to be using some aesthetics from this with the... I think this is bobsled. Yeah. Bobsled track on the turns after splashes, where they would have splash away or the something to cover up the difference, and then he uses supports underneath to make these things look wider and stronger. So I really do love the way Mekit built and designed this. Here's a log flume I made with Sewer Mott, and this is very much Splash Mountain. You know what? I think there's another one. Maybe not. I didn't save it. Oh, yeah. Scorpion. Another variation of extremely themed ride. So, you can do a lot with these rides. Oh, I kind of like what he did right here with the landing, because a lot of these rides do have track for those logs to connect to, so they're not like flipping over or doing anything crazy. So, yeah, just thought I'd show you a couple of these rides. I think I'm going to lean more towards the Mekit style log flume, because that's kind of what it was in Astroworld. Pretty low budget. There's 2 lifts. It doesn't split for the drop, but it's pretty good. And you know what? I think Mekit did another log flume. Yeah, king of the log flumes. Here's another small one too. Used a lot of nice mountain volcano pieces to make some vertical faces. Yeah, a lot of this looks really good. So let's figure out how we want to make this log flume work and fill up the space that we've got. So let's head back to Astroworld. So there's 2 characteristics. This is going to have a dual loading station, much like that Mekit station. And it will also have 1 large drop in this area. And those are the 2 things that we're going to try to do. And the rest of it's just going to kind of meander and fill up the space back here, which is going to be heavily made with foliage with maybe a pagoda or 2, because it is called Bamboo Shoot. There's sort of a Asian-inspired theming to it. So that's going to be the goal. So keep on watching, and yeah, we'll catch you after the build. looks like the log flume is doing well. After looking at the flume from like pictures of the past, honestly, this drop is not that big. It is not a very big log flume. It's similar to the one in Six Flags Over Texas, where you almost can't even consider it steep. So I used a little bit of a steep piece. I think it'll look okay. And then it sits up above the water pond. So like the water's gonna be the level below this, and this is kind of built up on a walkway. It's not really a walkway, it kind of just looks like bricks or like stones. And then we will add the split station here. I honestly don't remember how they made dual stations. It might be 2 separate rides, and then one has like the track where you have like an inverted track, and the logs are floating on an inverted track and a non-inverted track. We'll figure that out. Over here, I think it looks pretty darn good from most angles. That's what's going to matter the most, is like, hey, does it look like the trap's overlapping? Are we missing it? Are we not seeing a direction in which it turns? I think it looks good. There's not a whole lot of height variation to it. I think the only part that I need to really adapt to the new area is probably the serpent coaster. In that circumstance, I really need to figure out how big this walkway is, this like area around here, and then how these buildings are going to be built, because this will have to fit in the rest, like the space that's left over. So I'm not too concerned. This is a super simple coaster. It's up and then like an S-back, so nothing too crazy on that end, so I'm not too worried about that. I guess I could probably open this ride and see if people go on it. They probably will. But overall, I really like how this is shaping up. We're actually figuring out a lot of these rides, how they fit into the space they fit into. The train, like I said many episodes ago, this train is going to do whatever I need it to do when it comes to the area. Because it's on the border, it allows me to kind of finagle its way. Like, let's say we redo this coaster over here. If I have to go around the coaster or I'm going to make it go through, it doesn't matter. Over here, we're going to figure out how we make it cut through Excalibur. In real life, I believe it's more like a straight shot through here with a station on the diagonal, but we all know that ain't happening. So I'm pretty happy with what we got done in this episode. There was a lot of like theory and looking at what we can build, and hopefully you guys like that. I actually got a comment on a video like, I don't even know how many episodes ago at this point. It just came out while I was recording this, and you guys are like, hey, can you show me some other parks with reference to the rides you're about to build in Astroworld? And I actually did that by default in the Rapids episode, which you guys will see sooner than this one. But I just thought it was funny. I love your guys' feedback. It makes these videos better. For now, thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any more input to add to this video or future videos, feel free to put it in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and have a good one.